Us this afternoon. It's an absolute pleasure to be with the BYP network community today. I'm particularly excited about this event and hearing from some of our incredible guest speakers. So just as a little bit of an introduction, as Vanessa said, I am Laura Jamieson. I've been at Accenture now for approximately 5 years and are involved with our internal inclusion and diversity team and have found that events like this is really what gets me out of bed in the morning. I love the opportunity to connect with people like yourselves and share a little bit more today around sort of some of the inner workings of Accenture. We do get a lot of questions from people about, I've heard of Accenture before, but what is it that you really do? So today we're hoping to sort of showcase maybe some of the sort of sexier side of Accenture, some of the cool innovation that we do. So I'm going to jump in. I'm just going to give you a little run through about how our agenda is going to work for today, and then do some quick intros, and then give you a little bit more of a background into what the Innovation Incubator actually is. Because I appreciate that might be some sort of corporate jargon that doesn't really resonate with many people. So just looking at our agenda, as I said, I'm going to be touching on what the Innovation Incubator is and where we are now. Then we're going to have Philip join us, who's going to touch on a little bit more about pitching principles. So this is, and you'll see in a moment, sort of how it evolves and how it relates to the Innovation Incubator. Then we're going to hand off to Eben, Morvian and Yanis, who are going to demonstrate how sort of the best practice and how to pitch. And then during those pitches, you will have the opportunity to ask some direct questions. So come at them, don't make them too easy. Keep the team on their toes. And then finally into our Q&A. You can sort of ask some questions. So I guess save the sort of more broad scope questions around maybe, back to the pitching principles. If you have anything specific about that, sort of leave that to the end. And then we'll have a little close. We have something else that we want to announce to you. So I'm going to jump in because we've got a lot of content to cover today, but I'm going to keep this intro quite short and sweet. So I hope that I can give you a little bit more insight into what the Innovation Incubator is, and a little bit more about that process, because I think it is really, really interesting. So during Black History Month last year, Accenture's African Caribbean network, which is one of our incredible diversity networks. So some of you might be more familiar with Employee Resource Group or ERG. So it's a really great way for people across our organization to build a community. It's certainly where I found a lot of joy in Accenture, met some incredible people, many of those people on the call today. So they do a lot of work in terms of raising awareness and educating people maybe outside of the community, building allyship, but also creating a sense of, as I said, community, but fun and joy and celebration about all the wonderful things that, sort of about what it means to be Black. And actually, if you do have time later, go and Google or just sort of look up on YouTube our Black is videos, because that is one of the really wonderful examples of what our African Caribbean network community has created. So I would definitely encourage you go and do that. And I'll pop it into the chat. I'll pop in links throughout the session. But our Innovation Incubator was an initiative that was launched during Black History Month last October. And essentially it was a rapid innovation incubator. And what we mean by that, it was designed to bring people from across the organization together to design and come up with new and innovative ideas, I guess really like game-changing solutions to address and eradicate racial inequality. It's really something that we're passionate about at Accenture in the UK, but more broadly globally as well. And so through this process, essentially, we came up with the ideas, we prototyped sort of potential solutions, and that will start to make sort of a little bit more sense as we go through. And then the end game was to pitch a sort of a selection of these ideas to a very senior board at Accenture, including UKI CEO Simon Eves. And this sort of pitch was sort of constructed in an almost Dragon's Den style of an event, essentially where the winning concept or concepts were selected to be funded and taken forward by Accenture. So we're not quite ready to present the winning concepts to you just yet. So we're hoping to be able to do that down the line, but we're going to give you a little bit of a taster for some of our other concepts that were created during this innovation incubator. So a little bit more about the process, and I'll jump through this a little sort of quite quickly. But as I said, the idea behind this initiative was to identify, how might we statements. So how might we, and if I'm going to click on this, yeah, we've got it working, fantastic. How might we empower the next generation of Black talent? So really this sort of whole concept around leadership and what does that look like for the future. Allyship, so as I mentioned before, part of our networks, and they do fantastic work on bringing together people outside of the community and ensuring that, we're standing up and speaking out for all of our people. And then finally, the network. So how might we create and sort of foster that community and building relationships amongst the Black community, but beyond that as well. So from identifying those how might we statements, so what were those, I guess, sort of the problem statements, and how are we going to solutionize for them? So we over a week sort of process, the team that you're going to hear from today hosted a series of workshops with people from across across the organization. I was very fortunate to be a part of that. We came together and really got into the detail about what that problem statement was asking, and then started to ideate. So I started to come up with ideas about how we may address some of those problems. And then moving on from that, after the workshop piece, the team that was leading on this got together, really got into the detail. So we started off with a very broad concept, and then they started to think through about how might this actually in practice work? How could we bring this to the real world? And finally, that's when they came into the sort of Dragon's Den experience and pitching to the CEO of Accenture UKI. So it was an incredible event. We got to watch that live. So as I said, the people on the call today are real experts in this. And I think, I think it's going to be a really wonderful experience for all of you to sort of see them in action. So I'm just going to take one step back. Before we get into the pitch masterclass with Philip, I'm just going to ask our presenters today to come on and give just a little bit of a hello. Who are you and how you're involved? So I'm going to ask Eben if you're there, because you're going to be our first presenter for pitching, just so we don't eat into your time once we get into it.
No problem. So good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name's Eben, and I've been at Accenture just over a year, and I'm a business and integration analyst. And I work closely with clients across quite a few different industries, and I'm really excited to share my concept with you all today.
Brilliant. Thank you. And Morvian, you're next in my drop down.
Hi everyone, I'm Morvian. I have been at Accenture as a grad for 3.5 years, but before this I did a gap year and worked at Accenture back in 2014. So been in and out of Accenture for a long time. I'm now in Accenture Song as an experienced strategy consultant, and that's the short bio, but happy to go into details at other points, or just look my LinkedIn to find out more.
Perfect, thank you Morvian. And Yanis.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining. I'm Yanis. I'm an inventor at What If Innovation, which is an agency that is part of Accenture. I work to help companies have more adaptive strategies and more human-centered strategies, helping them innovate and incubate new products as well. That's a short bio from me as well.
Very cool. Thank you, everybody. Just a little recap on where we're at and where we're going to next. So Philip is going to join us to present to you around our sort of pitching principles, which will be really helpful. If you've got a notepad, take some of the keynotes down as we're going through, and then we will hand over to Eben, who is going to present the first pitch. She will have 10 minutes to pitch, and then you will all have 2 minutes to ask questions. So as I said, keep them challenging, keep them on their toes. We'll then move over to Yanis and Morvian, who will present pitch number 2. And again, they will have 10 minutes and you will have 2 minutes to ask them specific questions about their pitch. Please feel free to type those into the chat and I can pick them up and ask the questions at the end. So I will now stop talking, I'll go on mute, and I will hand it over to Philip to introduce himself and get into the pitching principles.
All right, thank you, Lauren. Hello, everyone. I'm Phil. I'm part of an acquisition called Bow and Arrow, who focus on building corporate ventures for clients. And in human speak, that really means building startups within big enterprises. In response to your question, what is Accenture's song? Down in the chat, it is basically a group of acquisitions and incredibly talented people who have recently been brought together under one brand name. I'm the director of growth, and really what that means is I spend my time going into corporate leaders and pitching them startup ideas to try and get them to invest in what we want to create with them. So we identify the fact that they've got unique assets and capabilities. We come up with some interesting ideas alongside them that we think we can create value for people, for the planet, and for their company. And then ultimately we look to build those together. This pitch masterclass, as it's so called, is really our attempt to whittle down the key things that we believe actually help make a difference to the pitch process. And so if you just click on to the next slide for me, Laura. I can't drive, Laura, can I? You're going to drive for me, right? You're on mute, so I'm going to assume you can drive. Unless I can click this, but yeah, okay, cool. But look, despite me telling you that this is a pitch masterclass, it's not really here about to tell you how to pitch. It's not here to tell you how to research the opportunity, how to define your solution, how to recruit your team, how to present impactfully. If you haven't really done or prepared any of those things, it's not worth us even having the conversation. So if you click onto the next slide, Laura, we're doing this a lot. This really is how to think about the pitch differently, how to think about the whole journey of a pitch process, not just the document itself. So if you click onto the next page, Laura, we're going to go through a little bit how. So this is really, it's not about the pitch. Let's keep going. 1% of people get investment. Whenever you go to pitch a VC, if you go to Andrew Horowitz, I think it's 0.7% of people that he'll actually invest in. So your chances of winning a pitch are so small. Keep going, Laura, please. And really, when we asked ourselves a question, so what's the point entering a competition if you're 99% likely you're not going to win? Who would play with those odds? Next slide, please. The reason I think this happens is because people focus on the same kind of 3 big moments. They focus on crafting their pitch deck and pitch story and getting it nailed down. They focus on the pitch meeting itself, and then they focus on the investment ask. These are kind of the 3 big things that people seem to focus on. And if you click onto the next slide, Laura, everyone has to play by these same rules. So you get the same structure, the same components, the same design of a pitch deck. Everyone reads online how to structure their deck, how to set up the problem statement, how to give the solution. Everyone gets a similar half hour time slot in the same meeting room with the same guest list of investors. And everyone's asking for the same deals with the same returns and the same terms. It's just so little differentiation in terms of how people approach this. So we click to the next slide. We believe the only thing to do is actually to create more moments along the journey and break those same rules. So what I've tried to do here is map out some of those rules. So the first thing we do when we start this pitch process is map the emotional experience. So click onto the next slide, I'll tell you what that means. We believe that the course of a pitch is from the moment you decide you're going to do something until the moment that thing is closed and you've started. And every single part of that journey matters. So when you start to think about this with your team or with yourself, what you want to do is get everyone in that team fired up. You want to set a big vision for what that pitch is going to look like, what the experience is going to be. Then you want to map each of the moments across that timeline of what the investor is going to feel and think. So that is before, during, and after that pitch moment. So really think about that experience design of the pitch itself. And then doing that, actually, you can think a lot of different other touch points you can use in order to influence that journey. Let's keep going, Laura. Second thing is about showing the future. So a lot of people think about the problem they're solving and the idea they have, but not about the future they're creating. So if you click onto the next slide, I believe two things you need to do. Ultimately, you're asking for investment. You want to show what that investment would enable, and you want to bring that to life with real prototypes and real examples of what that future can entail. So ultimately what you want to do is say, we want to take your investment so we can take the idea we have and turn it into this, then put this into their hands so they can feel and touch and get to experience what you want your customers to ultimately experience. So that's the second principle, make it real, show them the future. Let's keep going. I'm going to go through a bit of a clip. Everyone will tell you it's about the story you tell, and I'm going to talk a little bit later about storytelling. So I'm being a bit contradictory here myself, but I really believe it's not about the story you tell, but the story that investors can tell after they leave the room. What are they going to communicate to the people that they're going to talk to in, when they go home to their wife or husband and kids, when they go to the bar after work, whatever it might be? What's the story they're going to tell? So a few ways to help doing that. Next slide, Laura. Make it emotional and tell the story. So think about how you can actually boil it down to the biggest emotion, and then let customers play that emotion back. Let them tell the investor the problem. Don't tell them yourself. Next slide, please, Laura. Make it memorable and send it before. Don't use all your time in the room to establish the need. Send something before and then give them a simple takeaway after that reestablishes that need and lets them hold on to something that they can pass around to other people. Make them advocates for their story you're telling. Keep going. Startups are often about the team, and everyone says focus on the team and experience and their experience. But in my experience, it's actually not just about the team and listing off a great CV. It's about building the relationships with each of the investors. There's normally a kind of little network of people you need to influence. So click on to the next slide, Laura. Some of the things we're trying to do is try and back channel them right away to the top, scour LinkedIn, see who shared connections are, see who they've been liking on LinkedIn, follow those people, ask those people for introductions. If you've got other people in your network, ask them to recommend you, and ultimately match each person with your team against someone in the investor network or the client network to try and get them to influence one-to-one. And that way you can set up like individual speed dates, things like this. Okay. This is a big one for me. A pitch in its essence sounds like you're going in a one-directional mode, that you're talking at someone. But really what you want to do is create moments for the audience to become part of your team, part of your pitch team in that moment. Get them integrated into it and actually give them a role. So a couple of ways of doing this. One is don't set things as final conclusions. Share and build hypothesis and create working space for the investors to give their opinion. Those things won't be resolved in the room. So ask if you can meet up after and get inputs one-to-one. That gives you the chance to get those one-to-one connections. And the next time you come back, give them in a role in the room so they pitch back with you. We have solved this together when they go back to their investment network. That way, it's not you pitching back to the investment board, but actually you've got them in a role on your side. Then when you get to the room itself, it's so little about the content and it's so much about the person, the energy, and how you bring your energy to that moment, how you communicate with enthusiasm and energy, and how you change the dynamic in the room. So if you click onto the next slide, there's a few ways we've kind of hacked to do this. So don't make it a one-on-one thing. Try and bring more of the team you've got around you into the room. Start with an energizer or some comedy. So we often get people to like exercise at the start of a pitch, or we do some personal storytelling about some personal experience we have. And then ultimately treat the whole thing as a working session, not a presentation. You don't necessarily know the answer. You want these people's input and you want to build it together. And then as you're concluding, I've even seen this on Dragon's Den. They go in, they ask for too much money and they get booed out of the room. So it's not really about trying to get that full 100 million. It's about committing to one next step together. Ultimately, the goal of the pitch should be to try and take that one next step into the future together and begin to build that relationship with someone. It's not the final hurdle. It's really just the first step. So often after we meet people, we'll send them kickoff packs, we'll send them stash for the startup we want to create. And then we'll start sending them research and surveys and things like this so they can get involved with continuing to work and create the answer. It's all about making people feel part of the team. Everyone wants to feel part of a club, part of a team. So if you can kind of engage people through the pitch process in that and get them on your side, then you've begun to win the battle. And yeah, I'll just finish by saying that we want to bring them into the world. So get them, invite them into future sessions, bring them into your world, make them feel like, as I said, they're part of your squad. And then I think that's a pretty big step to winning the pitch. That's all my kind of the rules on how not to pitch, I suppose. I've got a few slides on storytelling if you've got time. I know we're running a little, I have 10 minutes, but Laura, what do you think? We've got 3 minutes to do it. All right. So despite me telling you it's not all about the story, I do believe everything still is a story. And actually what you want is to create something that other people can go and communicate after you've left the room really clearly. And so at every moment throughout whatever you do, you look to create a narrative and distill the narrative down and make it really easily communicable. So if you click on to the next slide, I'll kind of talk a little bit about how we do that. So we ultimately believe that stories travel. It's not the stats, it's the stories that go from person to person. And if you can get a story that an investor or a client or a potential employee believes in and communicates and starts telling their friends, that's the biggest ambition to strive for. Let's click on to the next slide. I ultimately believe this is how you sell, the power of storytelling. We're going to click through pretty quick. Keep going, Laura. So you already know this. A lot of people think that investment is about the rational, numerical, factual, binary, and right brain thinking. It's true. You have to hit all of those things. But what gets people bought in, just click back a second, is this left brain, the emotional, visceral, physical, heart, and left brain thinking, and the reaction and the visceral reaction to the story you tell. Keep going. So how do you shift your pitch story to include both? That's the real question to ask. And we had a bunch of journalists came together and they assessed all of the different stories in the world, the best kind of fairy tales, the best cartoons, the best movies. And they came up with this framework of 5 key steps to setting up the story. First is grabbing attention. So cutting through and pulling you out of the noise in your head to get you out of your day-to-day and say, hey, you're somewhere different. Second is creating tension, drawing you into the challenge they've identified, making it feel real. The third thing is connecting with a heartfelt emotional lever. So humanizing and making it feel really human and customer-centric. The fourth is the eureka moment where you get the big solve. And the fifth is the outcome, where you see the perfect ending. Every big story can follow these 5 steps one way or another in some sort of order. If you click to the next slide, here's one I just kind of created really quickly the other day. So with a mass of more than 11 pounds, an elephant's brain is larger than any other land animal. So it's no wonder they say an elephant never forgets. And while that's nice for elephants, for humans, memory loss is a rapidly growing issue. There's a 3 times growth in Alzheimer's by 2060. This isn't a faraway issue. 1 in 10 of us, so 8 of us on this call, will suffer from Alzheimer's in the future. And if we wait until 2060, for us, it will be too late. MindX, the new startup I've made up, is the first digital therapeutic solution proven to drive definitive improvements in Alzheimer's patients in clinical trials. With your funding, we can scale from an initial trial of 10,000 to 100,000, enabling us to pass FDA guidelines, hit the mass market, rapidly reducing the impact of Alzheimer's across the globe. The story works by beginning to use analogies, personal stories, and out-of-category examples to take people out of their day-to-day. Start talking about elephants. Second, relate them to the size of the problem. Use that as a transition moment to say, actually, there's a huge market here, a huge problem to solve. Take that big problem and boil it down to an emotional connection in the room that they can relate to. Either tell the story from your point of view, something you've experienced, or something that you can say they will experience. Show your answer as the big reveal, show that as the solution, and then let them be the hero of the future. Let their investment be the thing that changes the world. You can bring all those things together in the pitch story. You've got a really good chance of winning the investment. Star Wars did it, so we can as well. And if it worked for Luke Skywalker, it can work for us. That's it. I'll stop there. We'll take some questions at the end if anyone has any.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Philip. I was nodding along to that. I haven't seen this before. So some really good hot tips there, which I actually think could probably play out in your sort of personal life as well as it could in sort of every day. So thank you very much. So I am now going to hand the mic over to Eben, who is going to walk us through the first pitch. So we can still keep to a 10 minutes. And then if people can hold questions for Eben or just post them into the chat and we can pick them up. As I said, we'll have 2 minutes for questions at the end of pitch 1. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Laura. So I am excited to present to you a new platform called Plugged. Just before I go on, my co-presenter, Florian, who I worked on this with, was unable to make it today, but I hope you do enjoy what I'm about to share with you today. So it's not what you know, but who you know. This is not an empty statement, but it is a very tangible reality. 70% of job roles are not advertised publicly. 85% of job roles are filled through networking. A limited network can hinder career progression and block opportunities. Now, this shows us that it's not a level playing field. Now, let me take you on a quick journey. Imagine you have the perfect skills for a particular career, but you simply don't know it exists. You eventually find out about it, but around you, no one is pursuing a career in this field. So you're kind of left to do independent desk research, countless CV revamps, and finally you land your much anticipated dream role. Only to find that when you get to this dream company that you've been looking forward to, you don't feel a sense of belonging. These are challenges that many in the Black community have faced. Sorry, if we could go back to the previous slide. The unknown unknowns, the network gap, diversity without inclusion. The unknown unknowns, many individuals in the Black community are not afforded opportunities due to lack of awareness. Diversity without inclusion, organizations have developed several initiatives and strategies centered around diversity, but more work needs to be done around inclusivity. And at the heart of this lies the network gap, the advantage that some have over others as a result of who they know and how they know them. You can go on to the next slide. So now many businesses have tried to overcome this. For instance, the LinkedIn +1 pledge. This is an initiative in the US that encourages LinkedIn users to connect with someone outside of their network. Bright Network, another platform based in the UK, they share opportunities and host career events. However, these organizations have many great existing solutions that are not always specific, sustainable, or scalable. So now I'd like to introduce to you Plugged. Plugged is an app that aims to connect Black talent, peers, professionals, and places. It aims to connect individuals from the ages of 17 to 34 to greater opportunities. Now, when you join Plugged, you are automatically part of a wider community. And this is a community of like-minded individuals, a network, a safe space, and a place of belonging. Now, how do you mentor at scale, but still keep it personal? Through pods. Unlike traditional mentoring, pods are a forum where you and 4 others will be connected to a plug. A plug is a professional that will guide you through your plugged experience, offering you insight into your chosen industries. Pods are an informal and relaxed environment to build connections which aren't always replicated in the workplace. The next slide, please. At events, sometimes it's easy to get lost in the crowd and sometimes it's really daunting to speak to new people. So with your pod, you can attend industry events recommended by your plug and found through the portal. By supporting one another, you can exponentially grow your network. So through peers, you can connect and grow with a community. Through professionals, you'll get to learn and gain deeper insights into your career journey. And finally, through places, you'll be able to build confidence in networking and increase your exposure to market trends. In terms of the benefits to organizations can discover an increased talent pool and have an influx of new ideas. They can offer mentoring at scale and gain inclusion and diversity advice. And finally, they can share initiatives and have a new perception of what inclusion and diversity can look like. So what are the next steps? The first phase is for us to use foundational services that are already available. So in Accenture, we have an existing program called Empowering Black Futures, which has a very similar setup to the Plug platform. And this is something that we can use to develop further. We'll also be partnering with African Caribbean societies in different universities across the UK. First, we'll start in London, as that's where Plug will be launched initially, and then it will be able to grow out to further cities. The second phase will then be to develop an app where we can ensure that we can have all of these features available to all users. We'll also connect with other companies in the space, such as Google or Microsoft, BBC, and this is a platform that can actually be used across industries. It's not necessarily industry specific, but as we work within the technology space, that's where we will start. And finally, as mentioned, we will ensure that the partnerships span the UK. And this is something that can not only span the UK, but it can become a global movement. Plugged. Let's overcome the network gap. Now, do you have any questions?
Thank you. So I'm gonna, Vanessa or Rose, are people able to come off mute and ask their questions? Yes, they can. Okay, so are there any brave people out there who have a question for Evan's pitch and wants to ask it off mute? Do I hear?
Oh, I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
I just wondered, obviously this offering is like for an application service, but if you're, for example, working in, say, like the policy or research field, and your offering is more of like a company or like a research firm, would you follow a similar deck, or would you kind of alter the offering of your pitch slightly?
So just to reiterate your question, sorry guys, if you can see that lights are reducing around me, I'm in the office today and the room is sensitive on the basis of movement. But I just wanted to reiterate your question. Are you asking that if I was working in a different industry, such as policy, would I change the way that I pitched this offering? Okay, yes. I think, yeah, it would be important to ensure that a pitch is applicable to the audience that it's for. So yeah, I'll definitely say consider who you are pitching to. I know with research, it would be important to actually include a lot more research. So the perspective and the angle at which you'll present something should have a bit more maybe data. This could be qualitative or quantitative, dependent on what you're doing. So I would say it's really important to factor in the audience that you are pitching to, because essentially when pitching, you want to engage the receiver. So whoever's receiving whatever you are sharing, is important to ensure that can I communicate this in the best way to them, and is it in a way that they will understand? Any other questions?
Hi, I've got a question. Can I go?
Please.
So yeah, similar to the last question, I think the pitch was really good and it was really clear for what it was. But say, for example, I run a business that's project-based, so like running music events. How would you alter what you've done to say this is a project-based thing rather than an app or something that's constantly ongoing? Thanks.
Sorry, someone just came into the room. Please, could you repeat the question? Apologies.
So sorry, I was saying, if you were to pitch something that's a project-based product or process. So in my case, music events.
Yeah.
It's slightly different to an app or something that people use every day, which is more like, oh, a certain amount of people are going to use it, you're going to get a certain amount of output. How would you alter your pitch for something that's project to project, so it still seems like something an investor will want to invest in?
So I would say, where you mention it's project to project, initially I see a journey. So it's important to present the different projects. So maybe that would be like a visual or some sort of mapping. You could show the time scale. So rather than just focusing on app features, maybe the presentation or pitch would include what the different phases of the project will have. I'm not sure what the nature of your projects are, but it would be good to just include the different phases and to walk the audience through that journey. I hope that's clear.
Yeah, thank you for that.
I think we can take one more question.
Hi, would I be able to
Yes.
have my question?
Yes,
Hiya,
please.
my name is Alicia Masson, and it was really nice to hear your pitch, Eben. It was really insightful and really clear. I think my question comes around crafting your story. What would you say are the 3 main tips around crafting an engaging and concise story?
Okay, so the 3 main tips around crafting an engaging story, I would say to start off a pitch without saying too much. So immediately draw the listener in. Using data intentionally, because sometimes there can be a data overload where people are pulling out many stats. So it's important to use data effectively and not rushing through what you're saying. So keeping cool, calm and collected and ensuring that you're able to communicate what you want across every slide or dependent on the way that you're pitching.
Thank you very much. I did definitely notice that your pauses were very, they were put in the right places, very intentional.
Thank you very much.
Fantastic. So thank you for those really interesting questions and beautifully articulated responses. So we are going to jump on quite quickly. I'm keeping an eye on time to our next pitch. If there are, I think there are a few more questions in the chat. So even if you have a look, maybe you can respond to them while we're getting into pitch number 2. So I am going to invite Morvian and Yanis to join us. Over to you.
Great, thanks, Laura. So myself and Yanis, we're going to be presenting Blackspace, which is on the how might we focused on leaders. Next slide, please. It is well known that Black households have significantly less wealth than white households in the UK. For every £1 a white British household has, Black Caribbean have 20p and Black African households have 10p. This is due to decades of racial inequality that imposed barriers to wealth accumulation, either explicitly through slavery or unequal treatment after emancipation. And these are demonstrated today through the current criminal justice system, the Windrush scandal, and policy failures. So let's have a look at the avenues where the Black community are encouraged to explore wealth creation, namely business ventures and professional and creative services. UK-based Black founders face multiple barriers and receive only a tiny proportion of venture capital investment, 0.24% to be precise. 1.5% of top positions are held by Black people, a 0.1 percentage point increase in 8 years, which has a direct impact on decision-making. And when we consider how Black creators are the pioneers of the biggest trends in innovation, yet only 1.4% of jobs in the UK's creative economy were filled by Black people, it raises the question of whether these wealth creation avenues are really catered towards the Black community. Listening closely to those who are directly impacted, Black founders feel that there is a funding bias and their ideas are simply not heard. Black professionals have minimal or no role models they can aspire to in their workplaces, and Black creators barely have any support or avenues of encouragement. The structural obstacles that the Black community face continues to exacerbate the wealth gap, and without cultural and systemic change, it's hard to see how we can close it. The solution? Blackspace. Blackspace is an accessible community empowering Black founders, leaders, and creators to innovate, connect, and collaborate through access to a co-working space. We are accessible as we're removing the barriers that the Black community face. We are inclusive as we welcome different perspectives through our partners and allies, and we are impactful as we're building a lasting community. We offer 3 membership pathways for founders, leaders, and creators to develop their capabilities and thrive in their authentic self. For Black founders, we're focusing those along the journey of starting their business from entry to launch by connecting them with the skills, information, network, and funding to build successful businesses. For Black leaders, we're focusing on Black professionals by providing them with the network, capability, and mindsets to maximize their potential. And this is for both aspiring and recognized leaders. And for Black creators, we are amplifying Black culture by linking the Black creators with their art form peers and the inspiration to express themselves authentically through the generation of their own intellectual property. Although members align themselves to one of 3 pathways, we're creating a community of like-minded individuals who have access to each other. And they also have access to a plethora of services, including mentorship, mental and physical health offerings, workshops, financial well-being, and industry experts. And many of these offerings will be inclusive of and supported by our allies and corporate partners. So going into more detail, we'll be providing tailored workshop per each membership pathway with relevant focus areas. For example, Black founders will have access to pitch sessions where they are connected with venture capital and investors. Black leaders will be able to understand and curate their own personal brand, and Black creators will be able to develop accurate pricing strategies that reflect the value and the efforts of their work. So the list that we have here is non-exhaustive and will certainly change to the changing needs of the community.
But how exactly will we create this community? Well, we can partner with office space providers like WeWork or the Office Group and offer Blackspace members access to co-working space where they can meet and collaborate. And we'll design those spaces with Black people in mind, offering collaborative spaces and displaying inspirational stimulus. We will also encourage authenticity by defining the behaviors and values that members will adhere to, so that we create a sense of psychological safety in the community. And of course, in creating a community, we can't forget about the most important part, the people. We need to reach a lot of members to create a real community. And we will achieve that by offering accessible membership plans and by utilizing influencer marketing to reach as big an audience as possible. Celebrity endorsements can provide credibility and authenticity to Blackspace. Finally, our stylistic approach can contribute to the sense of community, as the tone of voice that we'll use will very specifically represent what Blackspace is about, representing our values and underlining the atmosphere that we want to create for our members. So we've covered the how. Now let's talk about the why. Well, first and foremost, Blackspace will have a real impact on people. Our offerings are tailored to real issues and solving challenging problems. As a result of the 3 membership pathways, more Black entrepreneurs will be able to access funding, more Black professionals will be able to obtain senior roles, and more Black people will be able to access work in the creative economy, with the overall cumulative result being that we propel the creation of wealth and improve all the statistics that we mentioned at the start of the presentation. The second reason that we should realize Blackspace is that there's a clear desire for it. We ran a survey targeted to Black people in the UK, and the results were loud and clear. 88% of survey respondents said that there was a clear need for support for Black entrepreneurs, professionals, and creators, with different needs specified for each area. 80% of our respondents thought that Blackspace was a great proposition in itself. And 50% of survey respondents said that they would use a co-working space that was designed for Black people, at least once a week. So this reflects that the importance of offering a holistic proposition with both a co-working space as well as the other membership pathways. And our survey proves the desirability of Blackspace and that we're solving real problems. The third reason to play in this space is that the needs and problems articulated have not been fully met by the market. There are some market offerings which try to cater to the needs of Black entrepreneurs, professionals, and creators, often separately, often in the form of accelerator programs. However, what makes Blackspace different and better able to meet these needs is that our offering is holistic. Our offering is accessible, and it provides an authentic sense of community with a psychologically safe environment to go with it. Blackspace is a continuous and lasting offering. And with Blackspace, we aspire to create a movement, not a moment. Finally, with Blackspace, you're not bound by one pathway or one area. You can pivot from leader to founder to creator and have access to those people and those connections. Our proposition in sum is thus market disrupting. So how do we make this a reality? We would start by further testing desirability and further defining our offerings. Then going on to testing feasibility and viability. Do the numbers add up? Do the commercials and meet? And then we'll try to shape our crucial partnership strategy as by partnering with the right office space providers, with the right influencers and investors, we can get off to a hot start with momentum, testing and launching initial products quite soon, with the ultimate goal of launching the full proposition within 2 years. And with the full product launch, we aim to offer an accessible community which will empower, power, and fuel the next generation of Black founders, leaders, and creators, enabling them to reach their full potential. Thank you.
Thank you, Morvian and Yanis. I love listening to these pitches. It's always so well mapped out and really easy to follow. So I think we have a couple of questions. Where are we? Okay, so there's a couple of, there's a really nice questions about, do we have plugged app on Google Play Store? So that's jumping back to the other pitch. So I'll ask Ibn to just respond to that in the chat, or Ibn can come on if that's all right.
You can go ahead to Blackspace. I'll respond to the questions in the chat.
Okay, great. So I think we've got, is that Jay with your hand up?
Yeah, hi. Good to meet you all. That's a really interesting presentation, and there was some very interesting stats that you mentioned at the beginning. I work with a lot of BAME-based businesses, access finance, and one of the common issues I come across is not necessarily a bad credit file, but a thin credit file. And that comes down to, sort of generation after generation of households where they say, debt is bad. And people not taking out loans, not taking out credit cards. It's very difficult for investors to do their due diligence on somebody, or banks to do their sort of risk analysis. How do you go about changing that narrative? How do you go about sort of getting people to be more familiar with debt vehicles so that they're better positioned to take advantage of finance when it comes available?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Jay. And as part of our holistic offering, so if you remember that circle with the circles on the inside of what we offer, part of it was the financial workshop. So it is that piece around educating how your own personal finances will have an impact, but how to also make the most of your situation. So as you were saying, things like debt being perceived as not a bad thing, but being smart with your debt to be able to leverage it for yourself, things like that will fall under our financial workshop talk. So we're taking more of a holistic view as to empowering the individual to be the best founder, leader, or creator, but by stemming down to looking at them as an individual, so wider than just being great at their, let's call it a job, but as an individual, having a well-rounded perspective on how the world works and being able to navigate it is one of the things that we really want to enhance within Blackspace as an offering. Hopefully that answers your question. But people like you would be great to partner with if you have that data and the people who can navigate those conversations and educate and empower the community. I think.
Sorry, still on mute. Yeah, yeah, definitely. That would be really good.
Thank you.
Great, thank you for the question, Jay. And I've seen a question in the chat. Peter, are you keen to come off mute and ask the question? Would you like me to read it out?
All right, sure, I can do that.
Great.
Okay, thank you very much. Great presentation. So I'm also working on starting my own business, and I also tutor entrepreneurship in Nottingham at a college. So my question is, will membership come with financial commitment? And if yes, what will be the typical duration and subscription fees? And how do you plan to ensure sustainability? Because I'm a founder, I'm looking for money. Will I really have the money to now pay membership fees and all? So that's basically what I want to find out.
Yeah, really good question. Yanis, I can take it, or if you would like to, feel free.
Go for it.
Okay. So one of our mission points being accessible is that we don't want to be charging a fee, because as you were saying, one of the problems that Black founders face is initially having the startup capital. So then what you might not have the capital to then say, I'm going to invest in this. So where we want the funding to come from is really from our corporate partners and allies. So we're getting people to come in and use their co-working spaces, for example. So we might do a pop-up at Accenture and have a partnership with them such that we don't have to pay for a space, but they're one of our partners. And then in exchange, they get to advertise through Blackspace. So our offerings, the aim is for them to be free to create it, to make it accessible and reduce any barriers to entry, and have our partners and allies fuel our offering by having partnerships in terms of they have access to this great network, and they're helping to support the community by bringing the skills and talents that they have.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sounds amazing.
Thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you, Morvian. So I'm conscious of time now. I'm happy to, if anyone has any more questions more generally about the content you've heard today. So thinking about back to what Philip was presenting earlier about the sort of the foundations of pitching, or the pitching principles. If there's any more generalized questions, I'm happy to take one more if anyone pops their hand up. And if not, I might look at closing out, because as I said earlier, we do have a small announcement to share with everybody. No? All good? Fantastic. Well, again, if anybody does have any follow-up questions at the end of the session, Vanessa and Rose, I'm going to throw you in here. Please feel free to reach out to them directly, and they can pass on any questions that you have, and I will be happy to find some answers for you. So thank you very much to our guest speakers today. So Philip, Eben, Yanis and Morvian, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you all here. So I really appreciate you taking time out of your afternoon to be here with the BYP community. So as I said, I'm just going to stop from the Q&A piece. I just wanted to share with people that we do have a follow-up event to this piece. So we're hoping to view this as almost a learning series. So starting off today with presenting to you, as I said a little bit earlier, maybe giving you a little bit more insight into how we operate at Accenture, how we come up and how we create ideas and solutions for either a problem statement. Obviously, this translates when we're working for our clients. So hoping that you've picked up some hot tips today from all of our speakers around how to present your pitch, how to ensure that you're engaging, how to ensure that the story you're telling in the room actually isn't the most important aspect of your pitch. It's the story that they're telling others after or outside of the room. So I've certainly learned something today, but in addition to this, what we are going to be doing, Accenture will be hosting a pitching competition. Now, it's still evolving, and it's a little bit under lock and key. We won't be sharing this with the wider BYP community just yet. So those of you who are on the call today are getting a little bit sort of an early insight, but we have essentially partnered internally with our Accenture Ventures team. Our Accenture Ventures team in the US launched what they call the Black Founders Development Program. This was launched about 18 months ago with the objective to help sponsor and develop young up-and-coming entrepreneurs through either mentorship or connecting them with clients and finding opportunities for partnerships, potentially financial benefits. And so this was something that we launched in the US, as I said, I think approximately 12 to 18 months ago, with the backing of our global CEO, Julie Sweet. Now, our ventures team in the US have their sights set on Europe. So we are in discussion with them at the moment about hosting the very first Black Founders Development Program competition in the UK. So we've never done this before. And so we're really, really excited about it. I can't give you all the details just yet, but I can tell you that it will be coming up in the next couple of months. And everybody joining today will have first opportunity for access to registration for that. And so more details are to come. So please keep an eye out on all of the BYP network communications, whether that's via the newsletter, social media. Keep an eye out. So keep an eye out for Accenture, because we will be sharing more details on that soon, and we would love to have as many of you as involved as possible. So yeah, as I said, the next event that we will be coming to you with is almost a build on of this. So take your key points from today, think them through, and get prepared for our upcoming event, as I said, in the next couple of months. So watch this space. Just double checking. Interested, involving, we'll connect on LinkedIn. Yes, please. If anyone has any questions, I did see a question in the chat actually, specifically to recruitment. So again, that might be something that I'll chat to Vanessa and Rose about post this session, because it was based on what skills we're looking at. I think I've got maybe 30 seconds left. It's probably a good opportunity to sort of share that Accenture is a huge company. We're currently sitting over 700,000 people globally, and we have a huge variety of roles available. The diversity of opportunity at Accenture is huge. So we're not looking for one set of skills, we're looking for many, and for people with different experiences. So it's quite a niche opportunity to be able to come into such a large community at Accenture and such a large sort of influential workforce. We have a recruitment team, experienced hire alone, which is anyone who's not a grad essentially, of around 55. So we have very, very specialized recruiters recruiting for sort of certain roles. So if there's anything in particular looking out for, you can find me on LinkedIn and I can help make that happen, or do reach out to the BYP team and we can make a direct connection there as well. And I can help you out as best I can. So that is it from us today. And we look forward to you joining us again in the next couple of months. Thanks all. Back to you, Vanessa. I believe you're jumping on.
Yes, perfect, amazing. Thank you so much to all the panelists and everyone at Accenture for this webinar. As mentioned already, there is going to be a part 2 to this event, and you can register your interest for that in the chat box already. There is a link which is exclusively for you guys who have joined today. We will be sending out a follow-up email to everybody that will include the career opportunities at Accenture, that link for the part 2 event, a recording for the webinar, and also a survey, just so you can let us know how it went. Again, please do keep up to date with anything BYP and Accenture, and please subscribe to our mailing list. Once again, thank you guys and have a good evening.